For instance, there are grants available that you can go after. We looked at maybe doing buy a brick fundraisers or something similar to that. And then our Friends group, which is a very supportive group, are also looking to raise money and have already started that process. So let's see what else.
So I'm Melody Santos, 7 Old Gordon Road. I'm speaking as library trustee, but also as a private citizen and an active library user. I want to encourage everyone to vote for this. Obviously, I'm a little biased, but some of the reasoning behind this is the amphitheater as it exists serves nobody right now. This serves no one in town, and we're still paying for it because it's a library. We can't just demolish it. That's not an option. I remember a few years ago, we used to be able to do the plant and the book sale with the Brentwood gardeners, which was super fun. The plants all set up on the amphitheater stages. It would be so cool to be able to partner with other organizations. So this isn't just a library-only initiative. This is for everyone here. So it would be like, I'm having these little daydreams of like, oh, what if we did a Brentwood Antiques Roadshow with the Historical Society where we had things appraised? This is a community space. We're asking for this money from our community, but it is not the intention to try to get all of it. We want to fundraise for it, and we want your input for it. So yes, I am a library trustee, but as a private citizen, I urge everyone to support this initiative. This is for everyone in town, not just people who use the library. This would be for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For yourself, Rose, I haven't decided one way or the other yet, but I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, we don't have an idea how much this is going to cost. Are we buying a timeshare? I know how those things go. I'd like to have some kind of idea of how much it's going to cost or how long it's going to be that we're going to be funding this thing, like a year, 2 years, 3 years. I like the idea of getting some other people involved and contributing money, but I don't want to buy a timeshare. Okay, that's it.
I think this is just to start the process, so we have some, engineering is going to cost a lot of money. These things are huge. I don't know, Bob Stevens is still here, I asked him to spit out what he thinks for engineering, but it could be fairly expensive for engineering.
Chris Magnuson, Drive. My mom's a librarian. I love libraries, I love open space, and when that first came out, it was just fantastic. So I remember my kids benefiting from story hour and craft time and all of that, and it's fantastic. I'm looking at this from a process perspective, and so as a process perspective, anytime we've had any type of a project, usually there is a plan, usually there's some idea or an estimate of what this money is going to be used for, and my personal feeling is this is an awful lot of money without really having the specifics of knowing what we're doing. So is it, are they going to start to demo it to make it more safe, or is nothing going to happen? So the other thing too is I remember when our town was really divided when we did the addition for the school, and we made it what it is now, that took 3 votes. But in the process of doing 3 votes, I remember specifically the playground was not part of the funding of the school, which you said that doesn't make any sense. But the beautiful thing that happened was that as a result of that, we had a playground committee. We had people in the community and the business that raised money. It was an opportunity to come together, old and young, and it was a healing process. So my feeling is I would love to have a project where we could do that. Currently, as a process perspective, I think for this amount of money, I'm not in favor of this amount of money right now, but I would love to see more and would be happy to participate in the volunteer effort on this.
Thank you. Becky?
Rebecca Dunham, 9 Block Drive. I am an avid fan of libraries. I think the library in town does a wonderful job serving the community. I do have some questions about this project. One thing I know there's going to be a design process. I think part of that design process should be not only to reconfigure what the amphitheater is, but to create a design that would allow us to use the lower level of the library without having to go down a ramp, and to also provide ADA compliance. That's a wonderful space downstairs that is impossible to get through. If we don't include this in the next design, there's going to be a project down the road to make it ADA compliant and to use the basement. Why can't we combine this and do a really good project that meets all the needs of the library, not just the amphitheater, but access to the lower level, access for ADA, anything that would make the whole building usable for the community, not just the amphitheater. That's it.
That is in the line.
I hope so. I'd like to be part of
100%
it.
it is.
I'd like to be part of it.
Hi,
Yes.
Liz McConnell, 52 Stevens Drive. So, yes, in response to Rebecca, one of the grants that we're looking at from the State Library Association has to do with compliance for people with disabilities. So that is a grant that's out there. We have also talked at the library. One of the difficult things we have now even is in order for us to get books from the main floor of the library down into the basement for the book sales that the Friends conduct or anything like that, you have to take a rickety cart out on the driveway and all the way down and through the ramp. And so part of the process of asking for these designs from the architects and the engineers is to look at whether we can have a ramp that's covered, that meets up with the basement, or we could have some kind of lift service that we would be able to take books up and down from. The other thing that I wanted to speak about, which is kind of an unknown, if you are looking at the back of the library, the ramp that leads to the basement, on the left-hand side is our septic system. So, and that's held up by those railroad ties or those wood, that wood staging on the side and at the back. And so it is not an easy trip to just dismantle that and take that down. So again, it's more extensive engineering work to try to sort through how that needs to work so that we don't destroy our septic system in the meantime. Also, that the other thing that will add to the expense of that, which we won't know until we get a good design. We don't know, we don't necessarily, we want input from our community. We don't necessarily want the exact setup that we have now. We might need to make some changes to that. But we also are looking at having those materials made out of something that's durable. So we're talking about stones and capstones for the top for seating, and that, of course, is going to be way more expensive than what we currently have, which is wood, which we all know we shouldn't be using.
I have a question. The police facility committee got money through an annual meeting to start to develop designs. But we needed the money for the development of the designs.
Exactly.
Is that a similar reason here?
Yes. I mean,
Is that the idea?
yes,
Is this seed money to start
so
to develop?
Yes, and also we were told we were advised by the select board that we don't want to just fund that original design plan, because we have, first of all, we have to go out to different engineering groups to get those design plans, so we don't know what that cost is going to be. And then we don't want to have to keep waiting until the next town meeting, and then the next town meeting, so that it puts us off even further. So if we have a chunk of change and then we have community input, we decide what kind of design we want, people in the community are happy with it, they think it can be used by many, then we would go ahead with having the engineers come in, help us design it, and perhaps even then say, you know, so now we're at a point where we can deal with the demolition. We know what the story is with how the septic system is designed and how we have to protect that and not damage it. So yes, so those are the things that we're talking about. And then we wouldn't have to wait until next year. If we put in a warrant article for $15,000 and it costs $15,000 for our, for our design plans, then we're stuck until next year. So we wanted to have something left over to see incrementally if we could move forward.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the warrant article is to get the engineering plans started, to get community opinion, and to start the process, not to fund the process, but to start the process so we can have a community discussion. This isn't going to cover the cost of all of it, but it is a start point so we can actually get official quotes and building costs of things
That's
by
my
putting it out to
understanding.
bid. Okay, just wanted to,
Correct, this would just be the seed money to start the process, as Liz mentioned.
Janice?
I just wanted to reiterate, on the grant process, we actually have an opportunity this year, the fall of this year, through the American Library Association, to apply for $10,000 to $20,000, which could help us with either an elevator or a covered ramp. So we're already looking at that. We've committed to applying for that grant, and I'm sure there will be others. We'll be searching, quite extensively, and then also doing sort of grassroots fundraising, which has always worked in this community. The library has basically been built on community support and volunteerism and so forth. So that's a big part of it, but it isn't going to pay, we can't just get this whole thing done without some commitment from the town. So thank you for your consideration.
Good question.
Okay, I believe that we're ready to vote. We're voting in favor. Let's just be clear again. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to establish a library amphitheater capital reserve fund under the provisions of RSA 35-1 for the design, demolition, and construction, and to raise and appropriate a sum of $50,000 to be placed in this fund. All those in favor, raise your hands, please. Thank you. Those opposed? Okay. That's passed.
Motion to restrict.
Motion to restrict. You second it? Okay. Thank you. Library folks, we're off and running. Okay, we have, if I am correct, we've only got one more warrant article. Oh, good. Article 14. To discontinue CRF Capital Reserve Fund, to discontinue multiple capital reserve funds. To see if the town will vote to discontinue the following capital reserve funds. Costs of plans to expand, build new fire department established in 2008. Lottery maintenance fund established in 2003. Recycling revenues established in 1996. Said funds and accumulated interest to date of withdrawal are to be transferred to the municipality's general fund. And then I'll let Bob talk about
We have a motion?
current balance.
Second.
Motion, second.
All right, this money is going back into the general fund. Essentially, the fire station has already been built. I think we plan on building one soon. So we have $285.42 that remains in that. We'd like to dissolve that capital reserve fund and put that money back to the general fund. Library maintenance fund, building maintenance, we put all the buildings under one maintenance group, so they have $23.30. We'd like to dissolve that capital reserve fund and put that back into the general fund. And then recycling revenues, this was created back in 1996 when we used to have to pay and get money from our recycling, but now we do it with our trash. So we will never use it, it just sits there at $6,140.51. We'd like to put that back into the general fund and dissolve that capital reserve fund.
Move the question.
Well, we have a question, a comment.
Linda Wakefield, 71 Middle Road. I just wanted to make a motion to amend this warrant article, basically leaving it exactly as it's stated, adding one statement at the end saying that except the recycling revenues, which could be transferred to the Mary D. Bartlett Library for use in continuing their current recycling efforts.
Do you have that in writing? And is there a second to it?
So before we go there, Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
the fund was established just for recycling revenues. It can't be used for anything except for recycling revenues.
Only be used to generate revenue.
Yes, for the recycling. It can't. There was no purpose to expend the money in the warrant article. It was just to collect. It was just to collect money.
Just needed a bucket to put it in.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So we're going to take that bucket and put it to the general fund.
Okay.
So it's just not sitting there unusable.
Correct.
Based on that information, are you willing to withdraw? the
I
amendment?
will withdraw.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Well, let's see, is there anybody that wishes to speak to this? I guess not. Yes, it's time to vote. All those in favor of warrant article number 14? All those opposed? It carries.
Non-reconsider.
Okay, that carries. Okay. Now, is there anything left? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Because Skip has always got something to say nice about somebody.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. I'd like to make 3 statements or points. First of all, I would like to charge the Board of Selectmen to send a letter to the President of Ukraine, telling him that we met as a community and are in support and solidarity of their repulsion of the invasion of their country. And I would also like the selectmen to send some kind of a message to Vladimir Putin, telling him that we condemn this invasion and will hold him accountable in the World Court when this all is over for war crimes for having gone civilian population and people, human beings, not engaged in the war. Third point is that every year when I get the annual report, I flip to the deaths. That happens when you get my age. And I see some names that I recognize over the half century that I've been in town who have contributed much to this town and a wonderful place it is for us to live. I see Thomas R. Kell, whose son Stephen, Officer Stephen, gave his life for his community as a police officer. I see Jane Byrne, whose name is legend in this town for all that she has done over the years along with her husband. Marilyn Moorhead, who is a long-time supporter of the library and a wonderful friend to everybody. And Sidney Gold, most of you don't remember him, but he always stood up at town meeting way back when we met in the cellar of the Swayze Center School. And he would always stand up and say, we can't keep spending all this money or we're not going to be able to live in town. So we always used to vote against almost everything. We need more of him. So I would like to suggest that we adjourn this meeting, the minutes show that we adjourn this meeting in their honor and memory.
Thank you, thank you. All those in favor? Somebody. Yes, Robin?
Robin Wrighton, 102 Middle Road. I would like to read a statement into the minutes for the permanent record of this meeting, if I may. So I'd like to say the Brentwood Newsletter is a volunteer organization established in 1977, and for 45 years has provided a vital platform for free expression to all residents. Anyone who has perused the archives will realize its true value lies in the recording of history. It is the very essence of the First Amendment right to freedom of speech and of the press. Dig a little deeper, and a reader will see that no year is without controversy, nor opposing viewpoints. In 45 years, despite opposing views, the newsletter remained a forum of civility. 5 years ago, I stepped up and I volunteered to fill the editor role held by Linda Rousseau for 40 years. There's so much effort not seen in order to produce a timely and informational newsletter, and at least 4 tried before me, and not one lasted more than a year. I acknowledge their effort, and I truly understand the burden on their schedules and their lives, because I average between 40 and 90 hours each month, all done as a volunteer. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the volunteers over many years for their contributions through thousands of volunteer hours each year. For example, in 2021, at least 128 unique Brentwood neighbors volunteered over 1,400 hours, all free to the town of Brentwood. Through the decades, this level of volunteerism has been sustained, and the newsletter owes its existence to these citizens. This is what makes the Brentwood newsletter the treasure that it is, and I thank everyone who participates. Sadly, recent events have changed our course. For more than a year, I have been harassed, bullied, and threatened. I've been called a fascist in the library parking lot. I've had profanity yelled at me from a passing car. I've been ridiculed on the pages of the Brentwood newsletter and regional newspapers by people now in leadership roles in our own town. All without even the briefest conversation or inquiry into how we operate. These people have acted in ignorance, and their actions highlight a rapid decline in civility. Brentwood is a microcosm of our nation. There's no question that this type of intolerance is the cornerstone of tyranny. It will erode our freedoms and liberties if we allow it to continue. History teaches us that tyranny often starts with censorship. I pray that the citizens of Brentwood will recognize what is good and realize that the things which are most important don't always scream the loudest. Thank you.
All right, George. We'll see you Monday. Bye, Robin. Yeah. Yep, that's it.